On the day before the submission deadline for graduation projects, I resolutely withdrew and destroyed my graduation design, incinerating all the finished products. After I had done all this, the campus belle from the same major immediately knelt on the ground, imploring me not to be so willful. However, I was determined to take a leave of absence from school. At the graduation project exhibition in my previous life, my work was strikingly similar to that of the campus belle. Even her design concept differed from mine by only a single word. Yet, she completed her work under the supervision of the tutor, and uploaded it to the database 7 days earlier than I did. She wept and cursed me as a plagiarist, threatening to call the police. To safeguard the school's reputation, the principal coerced me into making a public apology, revoking all my honors, and expelling me from school. My boyfriend, in an attempt to avenge the campus belle, publicly disclosed all my personal information, and even posted our intimate photos on the dark web. The torrential and unquenchable insults enveloped me like a tide. The vulgar and malicious words made it almost impossible for me to breathe. In a daze, I climbed to the top of a high-rise building and leaped off. When I opened my eyes again, I found myself back on the day when I had finished my design. I gazed at my design draft, my heart unable to calm down for a long time. I couldn't help but wonder silently, wasn't I already dead? Just then my phone suddenly rang. It was Jiang Ran calling. I suppressed the hatred in my heart and answered the call. However, the voice that came from the other end of the phone was that of a boy, a voice I knew all too well. "Hey Hien," he said, "my phone is out of power. I just ran into Jiang Ran, and she asked me to check if you finished your graduation project design." Upon hearing this, my breathing became erratic, and my body trembled involuntarily. It turned out that the caller was none other than my boyfriend, Lin Bohan. His words seemed a bit strange, but in my previous life, I didn't pay any attention and happily shared my achievements with him. Now, I finally realized that he must have colluded with Jiang Ran long ago. I feigned helplessness and said, "Not yet. I've been lacking inspiration lately." After hanging up the phone, a chill ran down my spine. In my previous life, the online violence was triggered by my most trusted boyfriend. He accused me of plagiarizing Jiang Ran's work and exposed me on the internet. I was spurned by everyone, threatened at my doorstep, and had to hide in my room, too afraid to go out. I almost starved to death at home, but he still didn't let me off. He made our intimate photos and my personal information public, and many lecherous men came knocking on my door. Thinking of this, I shuddered all over. Fortunately, everything was starting over. I didn't plagiarize at all. This time, I would never let them hurt me again. I calmed down and opened Jiang Ran's WeChat Moments, where several of her design works were displayed. They were not ugly, but neither were they outstanding. Each piece lacked any distinct features. Just as I was about to exit, I suddenly noticed that she had posted a new update. The picture had finished loading, but before I could click on it, a chill ran down my back. The picture she posted was all too familiar to me. It was the work I had just finished. I glanced at the caption. "Finally finished the design draft. So tired QAQ." This design draft was completely different from her previous works, full of highlights. I clicked on the photo and compared it with my design draft. To my astonishment, they were identical. Even the tiny dot in the bottom left corner was exactly the same. I exited the photo, and there were already many comments under her WeChat Moments post. "Wow, this is simply a masterpiece. You're leaving no chance for others, aren't you? Jiang Ran, aren't you afraid I'll steal it?" Well, to be honest, I couldn't steal it even if I wanted to. "Are you a hidden master? So amazing." Just then, the dormitory door was suddenly pushed open. I quickly stuffed my design draft into a corner where no one could see it. It was one of my roommates who came in. Seeing my frustrated expression, she seemed to have found an outlet for her emotions. She said, "Yen Yen, have you seen Jiang Ran's WeChat Moments? Her design is so amazing. Her previous designs were even worse than mine. In my previous life, I didn't listen carefully to her complaints. I just perfunctorily agreed, and then rushed to make the physical model of my design. Now I finally understood why none of my roommates stood up for me when I was accused of plagiarism. It was already too late. I put on a confused look and pretended to be eager to hear her continue. Seeing my response, my roommate happily pulled her chair next to mine and opened that WeChat Moments post that I would remember for a lifetime. She said, "Look, just from this draft, I can imagine how beautiful it will be when it's finished. If it's made into a real thing, it'll be a masterpiece." She chatted with me enthusiastically, but I couldn't listen. My heart ached. Can I escape this fate's mockery even in this lifetime? My roommate seemed to have discovered something else and didn't care about my silence at all. She said, "However, Don't you think her design element of gardenias bears a striking resemblance to your design preference? I paused for a moment, gazing at the gardenias outlined in black and white, and the pang of pain vanished instantly. An idea suddenly occurred to me. I looked at my roommate, contemplated for a while, and finally made up my mind. I said, Chang Huan, if I tell you that her design draft is identical to mine, would you believe me? What? Her expression of astonishment gave me a bit of reassurance, so I decided to continue. I had just finished drawing it a few minutes ago when she posted this picture on her WeChat Moments. I thought I was seeing things at first, but since you showed me this post, I'm certain I wasn't mistaken. Seeing that she was still in a daze, I took out a stack of papers. The top one was my design draft, exactly the same as the one in Jiang Ran's WeChat Moments. Chang Huan gaped in shock, unable to utter a word. She glanced at her phone, and then at the draft in my hand. 10 minutes had passed since Jiang Ran posted on her WeChat Moments. In such a short time, it was absolutely impossible for me to create an identical piece, especially since Chang Huan had returned to the dormitory earlier. She quickly processed the situation. Looking at the WeChat Moments post on her phone with a look of disdain, she said, I knew she couldn't draw that well. It turns out she stole it. But why would she steal yours? I don't know. Anyway, everything seems so unreasonable. She seemed to think of something and looked at me, asking, So, what are you going to do? If you can't clear your name, you'll really be wrongly accused. My eyes never left Chang Huan. Her concern and anxiety seemed genuine. I closed my eyes, feeling a twinge of reluctance but still made up my mind. I tore the papers in half, then tore them again and again. Each tear was filled with my resentment and anger. When I threw the shredded papers into the trash can, I smiled. Since the normal path was blocked, I'd have to find another way. After being oppressed the whole afternoon, I finally felt relieved, as if I'd found a new glimmer of hope in the darkness. Chang Huan carefully picked up the fragments that had fallen beside the trash can. Her distressed look was even more sincere than mine as the victim. To be honest, I was also quite curious about what the finished product would look like. Just then, Chang Huan's phone rang. It was the alarm she'd set. She had a part-time job to go to. After bidding me a hasty farewell, she left the dormitory. Once again, I was alone in the large dormitory. So many things had happened that afternoon. Exhausted, I just wanted to have a good rest. When I lay on the soft bed, I truly realized that I'd been given a second chance at life. I had hoped to have a good sleep, but as soon as I closed my eyes, a sense of foreboding welled up from the bottom of my heart. I couldn't help but think of my boyfriend Lin Bohan. Why did he call me from Jiang Ran's phone when I finished my design draft? And why did he show such disgust towards me when I needed him the most? In my previous life, he even joined the rumor-spreading crowd, slandering me for plagiarizing all my works, and saying that he'd been repulsed by me for a long time. I used to think he just disliked me, but that phone call made me suspicious. Had Lin Bohan and Jiang Ran been having an affair behind my back? With this suspicion in mind, I opened my phone and carefully scoured all the posts made by Lin Bohan and Jiang Ran on social media. Finally, 6 months ago, I found a photo Jiang Ran posted of herself holding hands with a man, and there was a cake in front of them. Although the cake wasn't clearly photographed, I recognized it at a glance. Lin Bohan had posted a photo of this cake on his WeChat Moments. At that time, I asked him why he was having cake, and he said he was accompanying a friend on their birthday. I continued to browse Lin Bohan's WeChat Moments, and sure enough, he also posted the photo of the cake on the same day. At that moment, it was as if I'd woken up from a dream. My boyfriend had been with Jiang Ran for a long time, and I'd only realized it after being reborn. However, I didn't feel overly sad. The pain of my previous life had already filled me with hatred for Lin Bohan. Now, I even found it redundant to say a single word to him. I opened the chat window with him, sent a message saying, "Let's break up," and then unhesitatingly blocked and deleted all his contact information. After doing this, I felt a great sense of relief, as if I'd removed a 1,000-gene burden, and I fell into a deep sleep. When I opened my eyes again, it was already dark, and my dormitory roommates had all returned. I'd slept so soundly that I hadn't even been woken up by their return. Maybe I was really too tired. I got out of bed. When Chang Huan saw me awake, she immediately came over, pulled me aside, and whispered to me mysteriously, "Why did you sleep until now? Let me tell you, your boyfriend called me and asked why I suddenly mentioned breaking up with him. Why did you two break up?" And she was like a chatterbox, bombarding me with a series of questions without giving me a chance to answer. Although I'd won Chang Huan over to my side, I still couldn't fully trust her in my heart. So, I didn't respond to her questions and instead asked, "Did you tell anyone about my situation?" She replied proudly, "How could I tell anyone about such a big thing? This is the first time I've gotten such a big piece of gossip, and haven't shared it with others. And even though you didn't tell me to keep it a secret, I still voluntarily kept it for you." Hearing this, I let out a sigh of relief and began to answer her questions one by one. When she learned that Jiang Ran and Lin Bohan had been together for a long time, she was too shocked to speak. I wasn't worried about Lin Bohan coming to find me. After all, boys weren't allowed in the girls' dormitory. Now I had to draw a clear line from this despicable couple. The top priority was to design a new graduation project. Since I couldn't prove that I wasn't a plagiarist, I'd abandoned my original design. In my previous life, maybe Jiang Ran had used Lin Bohan to steal my design and posted it before I'd finished, leaving me unable to defend myself. There were no classes these days, so I spent the whole day outside looking for inspiration, fearing that I'd missed the deadline. I didn't like being interrupted when I was creating, so I blocked everyone. For several consecutive days, I didn't return to the dormitory and kept running around outside. One day, as I was lying on the hotel bed with my eyes closed, thinking, a sudden flash of inspiration struck me. I quickly got up, walked to the table, took out a pen and paper, and began to draw the inspiration in my mind stroke by stroke. I don't know how much time had passed. When the last ray of the setting sun shone on the draft, I slowly put down the pen, and the pressure in my heart disappeared completely. Looking at the splash of crimson at the end of the dress in the drawing, my mood gradually improved. First, I burst into laughter on the floor, then I started crying. I silently thought to myself, can I finally break free from the past? This painting was completely different from all my previous works. Actually, I didn't really like fashion design. I preferred jewelry design. Firstly, there were too many people doing fashion design. And secondly, it was difficult to create what I had in mind. In this painting, I was a new me, a reborn me. That splash of crimson was like the color of the blood that had slowly flowed from my wrist at the last moment of my previous life. This was a self-breakthrough, a symbol of my rebirth. I visited all the tailor shops in the vicinity, and slowly sewed the dress in my mind. Back at the hotel, I finally let go of all my burdens. I thought that as long as I didn't use the design from my previous life, I wouldn't encounter those troubles again. But unexpectedly, when I opened my phone and clicked on Jiang Ran's WeChat moments, I fell into silence again. In her first post, that familiar red color appeared. In an instant, I felt as if I'd fallen into an ice cellar, and an unprecedented chill swept over me. I tried hard to calm my nerves. After a while, I carefully examined her WeChat moments. It turned out that what she'd just posted was my design draft, and the dress I'd painstakingly made. It was the same design again, and once again, it was posted in advance without my knowledge. Why was this happening? I'd avoided everyone during this creation, but I still couldn't escape the fate of being plagiarized. I pressed hard on the screen, and the anger in my heart erupted like a volcano. I would tear Jiang Ran to pieces right away. Could I never escape the fate of being wrongly accused of plagiarism, and would I end up despairing and committing suicide? Her previous post was a photo of a torn-up design draft with the caption, "Someone tore up my design draft." This post had only been up for a few hours, but it already had many likes and comments. And this post was only one day apart from the one where she posted my first work. The new post's caption read a bit sad, but I'm not discouraged. A new work is out. These 3 WeChat moments posts were even screenshot and posted on the campus Tieba. In just a few minutes, the post reached the top of the hot list. Many people praised Jiang Ran's work in her spirit. Oh my god, this work can be called a masterpiece, right? I can't imagine how beautiful the person wearing it would be. Whose lifetime? Mine. Such a person is so disgusting. How jealous can one be? It's a pity about the last work. Great master, please give us some guidance. Some people even launched a special vote, comparing me with Jiang Ran. My previous works had always won awards, and I was jokingly called the pioneer of the era by the schoolmates. Jiang Ran, on the other hand, was just an unknown nobody before. But now, she was being compared to me with my works, which made me feel extremely nauseated. I came up with an idea. I registered a new account and added Jiang Ran on WeChat. I wanted to figure out what was going on. Soon she approved my friend request. I told her that I saw her works on the campus Tieba, thought they were excellent, and got her WeChat through a friend. I asked her about the inspiration for her works, and why the designs this time were so different from her previous ones. I was full of anticipation for her answer. However, after waiting for a long time, there was no reply. I felt a little relieved. It seemed that she was too afraid to answer. But before I could fully calm down, the phone rang. I looked at the note. It was Chang Huan. A bad feeling welled up in my heart. I slowly answered the phone. On the other end, Chang Huan's voice came through, filled with concern and anxiety. Hien, quickly look at the campus Tieba. Jiang Ran seems to be spreading rumors that you threatened her and snatched her works. Incredulously, I switched to the Tieba. The top post was Jiang Ran's clarification post. Hello everyone. I'm Jiang Ran. First, I'll explain a question someone asked. The attached picture was exactly the question I'd asked her with my new account. The inspiration for the clothing comes from myself, and the subsequent words answer the second question. In fact, the previous designs were not mine. I was threatened by someone. I dare not reveal who this person is for now. She is quite famous in school, and all her designs are actually mine. I dare to speak out now because I want to be myself again, and I have given up my original works. Therefore, I named this work, Break Free from the Old Self and Embrace New Life, which is also my inspiration. Until now, thank you all for your love and support. The comments under the post exploded in an instant. Many people were extremely interested in the matter of being threatened, and Fanfan speculated about who had snatched Jiang Ran's designs. Gradually, more and more people cast suspicious glances in my direction. Don't you think that torn-up work is very similar to Hien, the vanguard of the times? Now that you mention it, I also think so. Many of her works have the characteristic of adding gardenias. The flower language of gardenias is patience and forbearance. Isn't that Jiang Ran? If all the works are Jiang Ran's, I can't imagine how many honors she has taken away from me. Your analytical skills are too strong. Waiting to watch the show. At that moment, I seemed to have returned to my previous life, and everything I had done became evidence to convict me. I packed my things, checked out of the hotel, and returned to school. Many people, when they saw me, whispered secretly in their companions' ears. Although it wasn't as serious as in my previous life, the feeling of being pointed at still made me extremely uncomfortable. Instead of going straight back to the classroom, I went to the counselor and explained the situation to him. The counselor asked me, "When did you first think you had depression?" I replied, "Yesterday." The counselor was silent for a moment and then said, "I'll take you to the psychology teacher for a test. If you pass, you can take a leave of absence from school." Entering that psychological counseling room, which was the same as in my previous life, a sense of despair of being unable to change my fate welled up in my heart. But I knew that coming here now was already very different from my previous life. The psychology teacher asked me many questions, including, "What experiences led to your suicidal tendencies?" I told him that it was because Jiang Ran stole my designs, and my boyfriend cheated on me with Jiang Ran. The psychology teacher looked shocked, wrote a few strokes on the paper, and then gave me a form to fill out. Relying on my memory from my previous life, I filled out the form. Without any surprise, my application for a leave of absence from school was successful. I could take a 6-month leave of absence, and didn't have to submit my graduation project for the time being. Walking out of the psychological counseling room, I couldn't help but laugh out loud. Taking a leave of absence from school due to psychological problems is not an easy thing, especially since I already had depression in my previous life. Since that's the case, if I destroy all my works, what will Jiang Ran use to graduate? Unless she gets into a car accident and becomes semi-disabled, otherwise, I don't think she can come up with anything. After careful consideration that noon, I discovered a problem. Why was it that the day after I tore up my design draft, her design draft was maliciously torn up? If this wasn't a coincidence, it meant that if I had it, she had it. If I didn't have it, she didn't have it. This time, I must turn the tables. Jiang Ran, your good luck is yet to come. I carefully edited the clarification content on the campus post bar. I'm sorry to take up everyone's time, but I must clarify the matter. First, I have never threatened Jiang Ran to give me her designs. Every one of my designs was completed by me alone. Second, this matter has seriously affected my life, and I have developed psychological problems as a result. I have currently taken a leave of absence from school. Finally, I would like to advise everyone not to make hasty judgments before the matter is settled. My clarification post was quickly pushed to the top of the popularity list, and comments poured in like a tide, but most of them were sarcastic remarks. Is this being scared and choosing to escape? I've never seen anyone cut off their own follow like this before. Saying there's no threat. Why don't you produce evidence? There probably isn't any, right? It's confirmed. This is a big scoop in our school. Looking at these comments, I couldn't help but smile bitterly. I had long expected such a result. Many people were defending Jiang Ran and dismissing my clarification. I simply ignored them and went straight back to the dormitory. Opening the dormitory door, I found that only Chang Huan was sitting there on the phone. When she saw me, she hurriedly said a few words to the person on the other end of the line, and then hung up. Yen, that work is yours, right? She asked softly. I nodded silently, not knowing what to say. I knew very well that in the eyes of others, everything I had done seemed like that of a villain. Facing Chang Huan, I couldn't help but feel guilty. Now that you've taken a leave of absence from school, do you have time to go to my grandma's house with me? You might be cursed, and my grandma has a way to break it. Chang Huan suddenly said. I was stunned. I didn't expect such a possibility. Seeing my hesitation, she said straightforwardly, just trust me. My grandma will definitely be able to do it. Consider it a trip to relax. I followed Chang Huan to her hometown. Her grandma's house was on the edge of the mountain, and the journey was long, but the beautiful scenery of the mountains and waters along the way was so refreshing that I temporarily forgot the troubles of these few days, and my state of mind became more open. Chang Huan had told her grandma in advance that we were coming back, and the old lady had been waiting at the door early. Grandma, Chang Huan ran over cheerfully, and Grandma welcomed us into the house with a big smile on her face. After a few words of greeting, Chang Huan got straight to the point. Grandma, do you remember what I told you before, that my roommate's things somehow ended up with someone else? Do you think she was cursed? Grandma nodded and then looked at me carefully. You're He-Yen, right? I nodded politely. Grandma got up and motioned for me to follow her. I followed her to a small room. When I opened the door, I was stunned. Inside were filled with many magic tools that I had only seen in TV dramas, as well as some things I had never seen before. I can see your experiences. Grandma suddenly spoke, and these words surprised me greatly. I tentatively said, actually I have a past. I once died. Grandma smiled slightly. By cutting your wrists. At that moment, I completely believed that Chang Huan's grandma really had a way to help me. Under Grandma's guidance, I slowly lifted the curse on myself. After succeeding, I was so excited that I knelt down to thank her. Grandma quickly helped me up and said, if you want to thank someone, thank our Nyo-Nyo. So I told Chang Huan about my experience of being reborn. Although she was very shocked, she felt more heartache. She gently patted my back and said, it's okay. Fortunately, you told me. Looking at her warm smile, my tears couldn't help but flow down. I didn't know how to repay them, but Chang Huan smiled and said, just come and see my grandma more often. She's alone at home and doesn't have many people to talk to. If we go to see her more often, she'll be happy, and I'll be happy too. I nodded vigorously and hugged Chang Huan tightly. Because of the leave of absence from school, I didn't have to rush back to school, while Chang Huan still had classes and returned to school after staying for 2 days. I also went home. Before leaving, I promised Grandma that I would often come to see her. After returning home, I told my parents what had happened. Although they were very worried about me, they were helpless and could only let me do as I pleased. To thank Chang Huan, I invited her to dinner and gave her a lot of suggestions on her graduation project. She was very happy. In the following days, I watched dramas and browsed videos at home every day, living a very comfortable life. Until one day, I looked at the date and suddenly realized that there were only 2 days left until the submission of the graduation project. I suddenly remembered what Grandma had said. Your curse was that the beneficiary would get what he wanted from you. However, once the curse is lifted, the things he obtained will backfire on him and bring him huge troubles. The prerequisite is that you have to destroy this thing. I sorted out the design drafts of the clothes and planned to burn them the next day. Just then, a rapid knock on the door, dong dong dong, interrupted my thoughts. The sound didn't seem to be my parents. I walked to the door and looked through the peephole. To my surprise, it was Lin Bohan and Jiang Ran. Without hesitation, I opened the door. I wanted to see what tricks these two dogs were going to play. When Lin Bohan saw me open the door, he immediately protected Jiang Ran behind him and shouted at me angrily, He-Yen, why can't you stand to see others do well? Clearly, it was you who threatened Ran to give you the designs, and now you're harming her instead. I asked coldly, how have I harmed her? Lin Bohan was furious and said, that torn-up design plagiarized the elements of a well-known domestic designer. If it weren't for you, how could Ran have received a lawyer's letter? Go and admit that you asked for it, and take all the responsibility, and we'll forgive you. Only then did I remember that one of the elements in that design was borrowed from my cousin, and my cousin was precisely that well-known designer. Looking at Jiang Ran glaring at me with hatred, I found it extremely ridiculous. She was the one who stole my designs, but when something went wrong, she wanted me to take the blame, and with an air of condescension. Fine, but Jiang Ran, if you go and clarify that you cursed me and that the designs are mine, won't that be okay? I looked at her with a half smile, and her face instantly turned deathly pale. He-Yen, what nonsense are you talking about? Stop playing dumb here. Lin Bohan was even more angry, as if he wanted to swallow me alive. Seeing their appearance, I felt extremely happy. Since you don't like my solution, then find someone else. With that, I directly closed the door. Lin Bohan refused to give up. He knocked on the door forcefully, shouted insults, and even used swear words. It was not until the neighbors couldn't stand it anymore and came out to stop them that they left resentfully. I opened the school forum to see what was going on. This glance truly startled me. For 2 consecutive days, everyone had been discussing the matter of Jiang Ran plagiarizing the works of a well-known designer. The post had already reached several thousand floors of discussion, and Jiang Ran's clarification seemed more like a confirmation of the fact of plagiarism. I didn't plagiarize XX's design. This design was what Yan asked me to make for her. I never expected it to contain plagiarized content, so this counts as Yan's plagiarism. Do you think everyone is a fool? This melon is so interesting. There's such a big story to follow now. Before it was said that Yan threatened you. Now it's that Yan asked you to do it. Aren't you just shifting the blame? I'm really curious how this person has survived until now. If it were my design naturally, I wouldn't have received a lawyer's letter. But now the design had been stolen by Jiang Ran. I thought, this must be the backlash against her. Thinking of this, I couldn't help but laugh. Don't be impatient, Jiang Ran. The best part is yet to come. Jiang Ran couldn't solve the problem, and made Lin Bohan keep calling me, hoping I would take the blame. At first, I answered the phone twice, wanting to hear what excuses he could come up with. As a result, all he did was ask me to take the blame and insult me. I rolled my eyes. I really regretted how I could have liked such a person before. Fortunately, Jiang Ran picked him up. Later, I directly blocked Lin Bohan, and the world finally became quiet. The next day was the day when design major students submitted their works uniformly. I hurriedly went out, and found an open place to destroy the design clothes, and the design drafts. I didn't feel it was a pity, because I had photos, and could make them again in the future. But it might not be the case for Jiang Ran. I leisurely returned home, thinking about going to see Jiang Ran's joke the next day. Unexpectedly, as soon as I finished burning, Jiang Ran arrived at my doorstep. I said sarcastically, "Miss Jiang, instead of sorting out your design, what are you doing here at my place?" Hearing my voice, Jiang Ran quickly turned around, anxiously grabbed my clothes and begged, "I'm sorry, Yin Yan. It's my fault. Can you make the clothes again? Please, I'll do anything you ask." I looked at her and scoffed disdainfully, then said, "Sure." She immediately became excited and thanked me profusely, but my next words froze her in place. "You go and admit that you stole my works and then drop out of school." Naturally, Jiang Ran wouldn't agree. When she left, she said viciously, "Yan, just you wait. If I could steal from you once, I can do it a second time." I was indeed a bit scared in my heart, but after thinking carefully, I didn't have any works left for her to steal now. However, I was still a bit worried, so I called Chang Huan and got Grandma's number. I called Grandma and told her what had happened. Grandma told me to rest assured, and said that she had cast a spell on me, and I wouldn't be cursed anymore. After hearing Grandma's words, I felt much more at ease, and just waited to see what tricks Jiang Ran could still come up with. On the day of the graduation project exhibition, I went to school. The exhibition rule was that students would draw lots and take turns to go on stage to showcase and introduce the inspiration and features of their works. And then 10 leaders would give comprehensive scores. Wearing a mask and glasses, I was still recognized. 2 people walked up to me cautiously, bowed and apologized, saying that they shouldn't have jumped to conclusions blindly. Now public opinion had started to change. Many people apologized to me and added me on WeChat. I forgave them one by one, and my reputation gradually improved. Finally, it was Jiang Ran's turn to go on stage. I was curious to see what work she would present. When she took out the clothes, I couldn't help but laugh out loud. That piece of clothing didn't show the characteristics of the design at all. Even the signature bright red color had been changed to pink, greatly reducing its aesthetic. Jiang Ran looked flustered and her face was pale. After waiting for a while, and seeing that she didn't speak, the judge asked, "Excuse me, Miss Jiang Ran. What is the design inspiration of this piece of clothing? What are its features?" Jiang Ran hesitated for a long time before tremblingly saying, Its inspiration comes from myself. Because of my childhood experiences, I couldn't see hope. And this design represents new hope. So I designed this piece of clothing." Before she could finish speaking, a murmur spread through the audience. Wasn't it said before that someone threatened her, and she got the inspiration from bravely resisting? Yes, have you noticed that this piece of clothing is different from what we saw online? Could it really be that she stole from Yan? The questioning voices grew louder and louder. Jiang Ran could no longer control her emotions and burst into tears. She hurriedly told the judge that she needed to go to the toilet, and then fled the scene like she was running away. I followed her to the toilet. When Jiang Ran saw me, she seemed to grab the last straw of hope and begged, "Yan, please help me. I really know I was wrong. I shouldn't have cursed you. Please let me pass the graduation project. I'll do anything you ask." Looking at her embarrassed appearance, I couldn't help but laugh. I took out my phone and clicked, saying, "Jiang Ran, last time I forgot to record, so I couldn't reveal the truth. This time, I won't make the same mistake again. Her already pale face turned bloodless. She dropped to her knees with a thud and couldn't say a word. I returned to the exhibition site, stepped onto the exhibition platform, and greeted everyone. Hello everyone. I'm Hien. You may be curious why I'm here. I'm not here to showcase my design, but to clear my name. With that, I opened the recording on my phone and placed it on the microphone. Jiang Ran's voice came through clearly. Hien, please help me. I really know I was wrong. I shouldn't have cursed you. Please let me pass the graduation project. I'll do anything you ask. After the recording was played, there was a commotion in the audience. I continued. Although this sounds absurd and even I can't believe it myself, the truth is that Jiang Ran stole my works and slandered me for threatening her. Everyone was kept in the dark by her, while I did nothing. My hard works were stolen by her, and now she actually asks me to help her. From then on, those who had scolded me on the school post bar all apologized to me one after another, and Jiang Ran suffered a more severe backlash. Her graduation project failed, and she was sentenced to 3 years in prison for slandering her classmates and stealing others' works. When making a statement, she begged for my forgiveness. I silently mouthed 3 words to her. Do you deserve it? Lin Bohan also apologized to me and begged me to get back together with him. I looked at him disdainfully, said a few words and left. After that, whenever I had time, I would go to see Grandma with Chang Huan. Grandma was always very happy. After graduation, my talent was spotted by a company, and they recruited me. I started a brand new life. My 2 designs, after being improved, were launched again and became popular items in the fashion industry.